Tonight we step through the outer gates of the Ottoman palace, just as the evening cool fades over Istanbul. You're not entering a fairy tale, though the domes may try to persuade you otherwise. You're entering a machine of power, polished with gold, perfumed with rosewater, and watched by people trained to notice everything. The setting is Topkapi Palace, raised after the conquest of Constantinople in 1453, then expanded across generations of sultans. Its courtyards, kitchens, archives, and private chambers still preserve the shape of a world where loyalty could save a family or quietly ruin it. Historians working with Ottoman registers, palace account books, and ambassador reports have long confirmed one uncomfortable truth. The palace was not only a royal home, it was a living political organism. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as the lamps begin to glow in this old imperial dusk, tell me where you are listening from and what time it is there. Now you pass beneath a gate where stone seems to hold its breath. The air smells of wax smoke, damp earth, and cooling marble. Somewhere, sandals scrape softly along a covered passage. Somewhere else, a servant lowers his eyes at exactly the right moment. That detail matters. In this palace, survival often depends on knowing when not to look. You may imagine intrigue as sudden, sharp, and theatrical. But here, it usually moves slowly, like ink spreading through water. A misplaced word travels from a kitchen doorway to a clerk's desk. A gesture at a reception becomes a rumour by nightfall. A gift of cloth, a delay in greeting, a missing name from a list. All these can become signs. And signs are dangerous. The first court is broad and public, where petitioners, soldiers, craftsmen, and officials pass beneath imperial order. It is busy, almost ordinary, with the sounds of animals, wheels, voices, and commands. Yet the deeper you walk, the more the palace narrows around you. Each gate filters another layer of the world away. The city remains outside, restless and immense. Inside, the silence becomes more expensive. Records confirm that Topkapi was organized through strict ceremonial divisions, separating public administration from the ruler's inner life. Scholars at major universities, including work influenced by Ottoman studies at Princeton and Harvard, have described this court culture as a system of controlled access. That phrase sounds plain enough. Controlled access. But in the palace, it means something colder. It means not everyone can reach the ear of the Sultan. It means the person who controls a doorway may control a future. It means a servant carrying coffee might know more than a governor commanding provinces. Your mind drifts to the second court, where the imperial council once met under domed chambers. Here, grand viziers discussed war, taxation, appointments, and rebellion. The Sultan did not always sit among them openly. In some periods, he could listen from behind a screened window, unseen by those speaking below. There is something almost ghostly in that arrangement. Power listens, but does not reveal its face. Imagine being a minister under that ceiling. You speak carefully, because every sentence may be remembered. You praise the right campaign. You soften the wrong failure. You speak of loyalty, as all ambitious men do, with a voice smooth enough to survive inspection. A little sarcasm belongs here gently. Court officials everywhere have always adored loyalty, especially when it increases their salary. Yet the Ottoman palace gives that old human habit a particularly refined stage. Every rank has clothing, every approach has timing, every appointment has ceremony. The more orderly the surface appears, the more you sense the pressure underneath. A quirky tidbit comes from European visitors, who sometimes wrote about the palace with awe, confusion, and a generous amount of imagination. Some claimed that the silence of the inner court felt unnatural, as if hundreds of people had agreed to become shadows. Of course, travellers loved exaggeration. They often arrive prepared to misunderstand. Still, their discomfort tells you something useful. Topkapi did not behave like an ordinary palace. It trained the body. You walked differently there. You spoke differently. You waited with a purpose, a page boy, a scribe, a cook, a chamberlain, a eunuch, a favourite, a prince. Each person belonged to a pattern larger than themselves. The palace held them in place, yet also set them in quiet competition. For a moment, it feels as though the walls are listening, not magically, not like a legend. More practically than that, they listen through people. A gardener may see who passes at dawn. A kitchen clerk may notice which household receives costly spices. A laundress may learn whose robes are sent too often, too richly, too urgently. The palace does not need a single spy when everyone can become useful information. This is where trust becomes strange. You might trust your mother, but she may be defending another son. You might trust your servant, but his family depends on another patron. You might trust your closest advisor, but he has enemies who feed him falsehoods. You might trust a letter, yet the letter may have been opened, copied, resealed, and sent onward with a smile. Such things happened in courts across the world. The Ottoman palace was not uniquely wicked. It was uniquely structured. Its beauty makes the tension more difficult to ignore. The tiles glow blue and green like cooled water. The wooden doors carry carved patterns worn by careful hands. The courtyards open towards cypress trees, kitchens, treasuries, barracks, and prayer spaces. On a peaceful morning, you could believe this place exists only for order and devotion, but by night, order has another face. The open scholarly debate is not whether intrigue existed. No serious historian needs convincing of that. The debate concerns how far palace politics shaped imperial decisions, especially during periods when royal women, eunuchs, viziers, and military factions gained visible influence. Some researchers emphasize institutions and law. Others give greater weight to households, patronage, and personal rivalries. Both sides are staring at the same maze from different doorways. You stand in that maze now. The palace teaches you that power rarely belongs to one person alone. Even an absolute ruler needs messengers, record keepers, guards, mothers, cooks, tutors, physicians, treasurers, judges, and readers of petitions. Each one can become a hinge. Each one can open or close a path. This is the darker truth. Though it whispers rather than shouts, intrigue is not merely betrayal. It is the daily weather of a place where everyone depends on favour. It grows from fear, ambition, affection, hunger, caution, and the wish to protect those one loves. That makes it harder. If everyone was simply evil, the story would be easy. You could point toward a villain and rest peacefully. But the palace offers something more human and more unsettling. A mother plotting for her son may believe she serves justice. A vizier removing a rival may think he protects the empire. A servant selling a secret may be feeding children far from the capital. A sultan ordering silence may be terrified of chaos. The marble beneath your feet cools through the soles of your shoes. A lamp flame trembles in a corridor. From somewhere beyond a wall comes the faint metallic sound of a latch closing. You begin to understand the first rule of this world. Trust is never absent, but it is never simple. It is measured, tested, purchased, inherited, performed, and sometimes faked so well that even the faker forgets. The palace does not ask who is innocent, it asks who is useful, and as the night deepens over the domes and courtyards, the question follows you softly through the gate. In such a place, where every kindness may carry a message, and every silence may hide a wound, who could truly be trusted? You move inward, toward the hidden centre of authority, where the ruler exists as both man and symbol. The palace grows quieter around you, not empty, but disciplined. Footsteps soften. Voices fall into careful layers. Even cloth seems to move with restraint. Somewhere within these chambers, the Sultan receives reports from distant provinces, listens to petitions, studies military news, and weighs the intentions of men who bow deeply before him. He is called master by thousands. shadow of divine order by poets, and sovereign by diplomats who fear offending him. Yet he is also one person inside a web of information he can never fully see. That is the private loneliness of power. The Ottoman Sultan is not merely a crowned figure on a distant throne. He is the point where armies, laws, households, rival families, religious authorities, and provincial ambitions all converge. Documents preserved in imperial archives show how commands moved outward through written orders, seals, and scribal offices. Research from leading Ottoman historians at universities such as Oxford and Columbia has emphasized how the ruler's authority depended on procedure as much as personality. It sounds almost comforting. Procedure, order, ink, seals, but order can become its own kind of fog. You stand near a chamber where petitions might be summarized before reaching the sovereign. Imagine the journey of one complaint. A tax dispute begins in a village far from the capital. A local notable shapes the wording. A judge records the grievance. A messenger carries it across hills, ports, and roads. A clerk reads it in the capital. Another official decides whether it matters. By the time it approaches the Sultan's awareness, the truth has passed through many hands. Each hand can steady it. Each hand can bend it. The Sultan must know this. He must live with it every day. A ruler who trusts too easily becomes a puppet. A ruler who trusts no one becomes blind. Between those two dangers lies the narrow road of Ottoman sovereignty, lit by lamps, guarded by etiquette, and paved with suspicion. Your mind drifts toward the famous screen spaces from which the ruler could listen without appearing. In certain settings, the Sultan's unseen presence changed the air inside a council chamber. Ministers could not know whether every word reached him directly. That uncertainty was useful. It turned conversation into performance. It made ambition bow its head while still letting it speak. A quirky court habit, recorded by observers and later repeated in palace law, involved the careful choreography of silence around the ruler. Servants might communicate with gestures rather than speech in certain intimate settings. Some accounts became exaggerated over time, as palace stories often do. Still, the image remained striking. A ruler surrounded by people who move like whispers, while his own thoughts become unreachable. You can almost hear the soft drag of a curtain. The Sultan's trust does not rest only on blood or rank. It moves through trained pages, personal servants, religious scholars, royal tutors, physicians, and men raised within palace service. Some began life far from Istanbul, recruited, educated, converted, trained, and shaped into servants of the dynasty. The palace school produced officials who owed their rise to the sovereign's household. In theory, that bond created loyalty stronger than the inherited aristocratic pride. In practice, human beings remained human beings. A boy trained to serve may become a minister with friends, debts, enemies, and appetites. A tutor trusted near a prince may become a quiet political instrument. A physician attending the Sultan's body may hear groans, secrets, fears, and last wishes. A chamberlain may control who waits outside a door and who's told to return another day. So the question becomes almost physical. Who stands closest to the ruler? Who brings the cup? Who reads the letter? Who interprets the silence? The palace answers with layers. There is grandeur, then protocol. There is protocol, then access. There is access, then influence. Influence may not look like command. It may look like a delay of 1 hour. It may look like a name mentioned gently during a tired evening. It may look like a report placed on top of another report. The open scholarly debate concerns the balance between the Sultan's personal will and the institution surrounding him. Some historians argue that strong administrative structures limited arbitrary rule more than outsiders once believed. Others point to moments when personality, illness, youth, grief, or favoritism shaped decisions with enormous consequences. The truth likely breathes somewhere between the archive and the private room. You're not watching a simple despot. You are watching a man trapped inside reverence. That reverence can be dangerous. People do not always tell sacred figures the truth. They tell them what seems survivable. A governor may soften news of unrest. A vizier may describe a rival as careless rather than capable. A courtier may praise a doomed campaign because doubt feels unsafe in a room full of listeners. And the sultan, sitting beneath painted ceilings, must decide which voice carries poison. The sensory world around him is almost too beautiful for such unease. Carpets soften the floor. Incense lingers near carved wood. Lamps burn with a patient amber glow. Porcelain cups arrive with sherbet, coffee, or water cooled for royal use. Outside, the sea flashes in daylight. Inside, even comfort has witnesses. The ruler's body belongs partly to the state. His sleep, diet, health, marriages, children, and moods become matters of political interpretation. If he coughs too often, someone notices. If he favours one companion, factions form in the imagination of others. If he delays appearing, rumour begins to grow legs. That is the comedy of palaces. If one is feeling brave, even a headache may become a constitutional crisis. Yet beneath that gentle absurdity lies real danger. A sultan surrounded by anxious observers may begin to guard not only his words, but his face. He learns to reveal little. He measures reactions. He allows uncertainty to work for him. The less others know, the more they must guess. Guessing keeps people obedient, but also restless. You sense the paradox tightening. The ruler needs information, but information comes from people with motives. He needs servants, but servants become channels of power. He needs family, but family creates succession fears. He needs ministers, but ministers gather clients around them. He needs soldiers, but soldiers remember their own strength. Perhaps this is why Ottoman political culture placed such weight on ceremony. Ceremony slows chaos. It gives ambition a costume and tells fear where to stand. It transforms danger into steps, greetings, robes, seals, and doors. It does not remove suspicion. It teaches suspicion to move gracefully. A quiet bell sounds somewhere across the court. The evening has deepened. The Sultan's chamber is not a place you simply enter. It is a horizon, visible through rank, rumour, and longing. Many spend their lives trying to approach it. Many suffer because they come too close. You begin to feel that the sovereign's greatest power may also be his greatest confinement. Everyone looks toward him, yet few can speak plainly. Everyone swears loyalty, yet each oath arrives carrying a shadow. The man at the centre owns the empire, but not certainty. In the lamplit hush, the curtain stirs slightly, perhaps from a draught, perhaps from someone passing unseen. The palace does not explain itself. It only teaches you to listen differently. Trust here is not a warm feeling. It is calculation made in candlelight. The private apartments draw you into a different kind of power, softer in sound, sharper in consequence. Here the corridors do not announce themselves with the public rhythm of ministers and soldiers. They turn inward, toward rooms of screened windows, cushions, baths, storerooms, nurseries, and quiet thresholds guarded by careful eyes. This is the harem, often misunderstood by outsiders who preferred fantasy to patience. It was not simply a chamber of pleasure, no matter how many painters later pretended otherwise. It was a household, a school, a political environment, and a guarded universe where women, children, servants, and eunuchs lived within a strict hierarchy. Records from palace payrolls and household registers confirm that it operated through rank, training, service, discipline, and patronage. Serious historians from universities such as Yale and Cambridge have emphasized that the harem was central to dynastic continuity, not a decorative side room of the empire. You pass a doorway where the scent changes. There is soap, rosewater, warmed stone, and the faint sweetness of stored fruit. Somewhere, a child laughs once, then is quickly hushed. A woman's robe brushes against wood. A servant carries folded linen with the gravity of someone transporting state documents. In a way, she might be. Every object in such a place can carry meaning. A robe sent to one woman instead of another may become a sign of favour. A jewel given after childbirth may announce rising status. A visitor admitted to a chamber may suggest confidence. A delay in a greeting may wound more deeply than an insult. The harem's politics are intimate because the stakes are dynastic. A woman who bears a son does not merely become a mother, she becomes connected to the future of the throne. Her child may one day command armies, sign decrees, pardon enemies, or order brothers removed from danger. In this atmosphere, affection and fear grow from the same root. You can feel the contradiction under your fingertips. The cushions are soft. The walls are hard. A young woman entering palace service might receive training in religion, language, music, etiquette, sewing, and the refined arts of conduct. Some were enslaved in origin, which must not be softened into romance. Others rose through service into positions of influence that astonished foreign observers. The palace could constrain a life, but it could also create unexpected authority for those who mastered its rules. That is the unsettling balance. A person may be powerless in one sense, yet powerful in another. A concubine cannot walk freely through the city, but her words may reach a prince. A senior woman may never sit in the imperial council, but she may shape the emotional world from which decisions emerge. A servant may appear invisible, yet know who is weeping, who is ill, who is pregnant, who is afraid. And information, as you already feel, is the palace's hidden currency. A quirky tidbit lingers in several courtly and foreign descriptions. Outsiders were often obsessed with imagining secret tunnels, forbidden glances, and impossible romances inside the harem. Their accounts say more about their own appetites than Ottoman reality. Still, palace architecture did include screened passages and protected routes, designed to regulate movement and conceal royal privacy. The result was perfect material for rumour. Give human beings a closed door, and they will build a legend behind it. The harem is full of closed doors. You move past a courtyard where night air pulls softly between walls. Above, the sky seems small and deep, like a blue bowl turned upside down. The sounds are domestic, almost peaceful. A basin is filled, a chest is shut. Slippers move across a floor. Yet each ordinary sound belongs to a ranking system as strict as anything in the military. At the top stands the mother of the reigning sultan, when she is present and recognized. Beneath her are favoured consorts, mothers of princes, senior attendants, treasurers, teachers, laundresses, nurses, and young women still learning how to survive the etiquette of the place. A mistake could be embarrassing. A pattern of mistakes could be fatal to ambition. The open scholarly debate concerns how much direct political power royal women exercised, especially during periods when mothers and consorts corresponded with officials or influenced appointments. Some historians stress that their authority worked through family and household, not formal office. Others argue that household power was itself a form of government. That argument feels persuasive when you stand inside these corridors, hearing how quietly decisions may begin. Not every command sounds like a command. Sometimes influence is a question asked at the right hour. Sometimes it's a memory placed gently before a tired ruler. Sometimes it is the choice to protect one messenger and exclude another. Sometimes it is the education of a child who may later inherit the empire. Your mind settles on the children. Princes are not innocent of politics, even when they are too young to understand it. Their nurses, tutors, mothers, guards, and servants form little worlds around them. Their first lessons are not only letters and prayers, they learn posture, restraint, suspicion, and the terrifying importance of birth. Imagine being born beneath silk and surveillance. You may have toys, tutors, sweets, and embroidered clothing. You may also have rivals before you can speak. Every illness matters. Every sign of intelligence is reported. Every attachment may be examined. Your mother smiles over you, but her smile carries an entire faction's hope. The harem's darkness is not loud. It is not a corridor full of daggers. No matter what lurid stories prefer, it is quieter, more human, and therefore more troubling. It lies in the way motherhood becomes strategy. It lies in the way affection can be translated into political capital. It lies in the way women, confined by structure, learn to move power through whispers, gifts, alliances, and endurance. The palace air grows warmer near the baths, steam once gathered in domed rooms, carrying scents of soap and stone. Here, bodies were cleansed, hair was combed. Songs may have been sung, and worries may have been shared in low voices. The body relaxes, but the mind does not entirely sleep. Someone always remembers. Perhaps a favourite has received too much attention. Perhaps a senior attendant has begun to favour one young woman's household. Perhaps a mother fears that her son's future is being quietly smothered by another woman's rise. No proclamation is needed. A glance across a courtyard can be enough, and yet there is tenderness here too. That must be allowed. These women were not merely plotters in silk. They were daughters taken from homes, mothers guarding children, patrons building mosques and charities, readers of letters, keepers of grief, survivors of loneliness. To reduce them to intrigue would be another kind of falsehood. The truth is more shadowed. The harem's quiet machinery turns because everyone inside it has something to lose. Status, security, affection, freedom, a child's future, even the right to be remembered kindly. Trust can exist here, but it is braided with caution. A woman may love her servant and still test her discretion. A mother may embrace another mother while fearing her son. A young attendant may swear devotion while listening for a better patron. A lamp flickers beside patterned tiles. The blue surfaces catch the flame and break it into small trembling pieces. You feel the palace becoming less like a building and more like a breathing creature, one whose heart is hidden behind silk screens and guarded doors. The harem does not shout its influence, it waits, and in that waiting, in those folded linens, lowered voices, warm baths, sealed rooms, and careful smiles, you begin to understand that the most private spaces of empire may have carried some of its most dangerous truths. Your path settles near the apartments of the Queen Mother, where the palace seems to lower its voice. The air is heavier here, scented with amber, warmed wax, and the faint dryness of old cedar chests. Curtains soften the edges of the room, but they do not soften the authority gathered inside it. The Queen Mother is not merely a parent living behind imperial walls. She is the mother of the reigning sultan, and in many reigns, her position carries extraordinary weight. She may control a household budget, manage servants, recommend appointments, sponsor buildings, receive messages, and protect the reputation of the dynasty. Her power rests on blood, age, memory, and access. Those four things can be stronger than armies when placed near a throne. Records from the Ottoman court confirm that some queen mothers held enormous wealth and administered large foundations. Historians associated with institutions such as Harvard and the University of Chicago have explored how imperial women created charitable complexes, mosques, schools, fountains, and hospitals. These projects were acts of piety, but also acts of visibility. Stone could speak when a woman could not stand openly in council. That is one of the palace's quiet tricks. A woman may be hidden, yet her name appears across the city in marble, water, prayer, bread, and shadow. A fountain built under her patronage may outlive ministers who once dismissed her influence. A mosque may hold her memory more faithfully than any courtier. The palace understands silence, but the city understands stone. You pause near a window where latticework breaks the evening into small pieces. Somewhere outside, gulls cry over the water. Inside, the Queen Mother listens to news brought by trusted intermediaries. One message concerns a provincial appointment. Another concerns a prince's health. Another concerns a rumour moving too quickly through the servants. She receives more than information, she receives atmosphere. A ruler's mother may know the tone of the palace before officials dare describe it. She may sense when a favourite has become resented, when a vizier is too confident, when a military faction is restless, when servants have begun whispering after sunset. Her knowledge is not always written. It is gathered from rhythm, interruption, hesitation, and smell. Yes, even smell. A new perfume in the corridor. A rare spice sent to a particular chamber. Too many visitors lingering near one household. The palace speaks through small disturbances, and a practised mother learns the language early. A quirky tidbit surrounds the legendary authority of certain queen mothers, especially in later Ottoman memory. Stories sometimes describe them as if they moved entire governments with a lifted eyebrow. That is probably a little convenient, and perhaps a little unfair. People adore blaming mothers when politics becomes complicated. Yet the exaggeration itself reveals something important. The palace believed a mother near the Sultan could be dangerous. Dangerous does not always mean cruel. It can mean experienced. It can mean protective. It can mean patient enough to wait while younger people exhaust themselves with visible ambition. The Queen Mother has already survived the palace as a consort, rival, mother, and watcher. She has seen favourites rise and vanish. She has learned which smiles are empty. She has buried hopes, perhaps children, perhaps friends. By the time her son rules, innocence has long since left her rooms, and what is left may be formidable. You imagine her hand resting on carved wood, the rings catching lamplight. She may love her son sincerely. She may remember him as a child reaching for her sleeve. Yet the man he has become is also the empire's centre, and a mother's private care now belongs to public consequence. If she warns him against a minister, is it maternal instinct or political interference? If she promotes a servant's son, is it charity or patronage? If she advises caution in war, is it wisdom or fear? The answer shifts with the witness. The open scholarly debate concerns the so-called rule of women, a phrase often used for a period when royal women seemed especially influential. Some scholars argue that older writers exaggerated this influence because they disliked female authority and blamed women for imperial difficulties. Others suggest that royal mothers and consorts truly became essential political actors in a palace where direct access shaped policy. The matter remains delicate because the sources are filtered through male officials, foreign observers, and later moral judgment. You can feel how difficult truth becomes. The Queen Mother may leave few direct words, yet her actions remain visible in payments, buildings, letters, household structures, and appointments. A scholar reads those traces centuries later, trying to hear a voice behind them. It is like listening for footsteps beneath carpet, softly, carefully, or else not quite enough. In the palace, motherhood becomes a form of political architecture. The Queen Mother stands between the dynasty and chaos, between her son's body and the ambitions gathering around it. She may restrain him when anger rises. She may encourage him when hesitation appears. She may shelter him from flatterers, or choose the flatterers herself. She may soften petitions, redirect punishments, or ask that a servant be remembered kindly. And because she can do these things, others gather near her. A minister may send respectful gifts. A courtier may praise her foundation. A mother of a prince may seek her goodwill. A servant may become loyal not to the Sultan directly, but to the woman who controls advancement within the private household. The Queen Mother's rooms become a second weather system inside the palace. People feel the pressure change before the storm arrives. The textures around you deepen. Thick carpets muffle movement. Metal lamps throw honey-coloured light over patterned walls. A small table holds folded papers, perhaps accounts, perhaps requests, perhaps something more private. The world outside speaks in armies and treaties. This room speaks in timing. Timing is everything. A warning delivered too early may sound like panic. A warning delivered too late may sound like betrayal. A suggestion must arrive when the Sultan is receptive, not hungry, not exhausted, not irritated by another matter. The Queen Mother knows moods as others know maps. She may navigate a conversation more skillfully than a general navigates a mountain pass. This is not sentimental motherhood. It is disciplined intimacy. You sense why trust becomes especially complicated around her. The Sultan may trust his mother more than anyone, yet that trust gives her influence others may resent. Ministers may fear her because they cannot easily confront her. Consorts may seek her approval while fearing her preference. Servants may adore her generosity and tremble at her displeasure. Her kindness can become policy. Her anger can become exclusion. Still, the room is not made only of calculation. Somewhere beneath the embroidered cushions and careful messages is an older human ache. A mother sees the cost of sovereignty in her son's face. She knows when he is tired. She knows when ceremony has consumed him. She may remember the child before the title, the voice before the command, the fear before the crown. Perhaps that memory is her most powerful secret. For everyone else, the Sultan may be unreachable. For her, he was once small. That knowledge can soften him, steady him, or bind him. It can also make her terrifying to those who want him isolated. A ruler without trusted family can be shaped by whoever stands nearest. A ruler with a powerful mother cannot be approached so easily. The palace grows still around her apartments. A servant waits outside with lowered eyes. The lamp flame leans and straightens. The distant sea darkens beyond the walls. You begin to understand that the Queen Mother is not an ornament hidden in royal privacy. She is memory given rank. She is affection trained by danger. She is the old pulse beneath the empire's polished surface. And in a palace where trust is counted like treasure, the mother's hand may bless, protect, delay, or destroy. The palace night gathers around the young princes, and the silence near their rooms feels different. It is not the silence of comfort. It is the silence of a household listening for the future. Behind one door, a boy studies poetry with a tutor. Behind another, a younger brother learns how to hold his shoulders in public. Somewhere nearby, a nurse folds a blanket and pretends not to fear tomorrow. In the Ottoman dynasty, brothers were not merely brothers, they were possible rulers. That single fact darkened childhood with a shadow no lamp could fully push away. The throne did not pass through a neat line of eldest sons for much of Ottoman history. Instead, several royal males might hold a claim, and the strongest, fastest, best supported, or most fortunate could emerge victorious. In such a system, birth created both family and danger. Historical records confirm that Ottoman princes were often appointed as provincial governors during earlier centuries, where they learned administration and gathered households of supporters. Scholars trained at institutions such as Princeton, Stanford, and Oxford have described this as a political apprenticeship, but also as a rivalry built into the structure of succession. A prince sent to govern did not simply learn rule, he became visible. Visibility attracts loyalty, and loyalty frightens rivals. You can picture one of these princes far from the capital, still young, yet already surrounded by scribes, tutors, soldiers, servants, and ambitious men. They bow to him, praise him, and watch him. They tell him he has courage. They tell him he has the people's love. They tell him his father notices him. Perhaps some of it is true. Perhaps some of it is bait. A boy may begin by learning letters. He ends by learning caution. The palace understands this danger with terrible clarity. Civil war had scarred earlier Islamic and Turkic dynasties, and the Ottomans knew that rival brothers could divide armies, provinces, and cities. A disputed succession might invite rebellion, foreign enemies, and months of bloodshed across the empire. To prevent that larger chaos, the dynasty sometimes accepted a smaller horror inside the family itself. This is where the story becomes difficult to hold. The practice of royal fratricide, associated especially with the law code of Mehmed the Conqueror, allowed the execution of brothers for the sake of political order. It was not an everyday occurrence, and it varied by period and circumstance. Yet its existence reveals the cold logic at the centre of dynastic survival. A brother could be loved as a child and feared as a claimant. He could be innocent indeed, yet dangerous by birth. There is no comfortable way to make that gentle. You stand in a corridor where childish voices might once have echoed, and the polished tiles suddenly seem less decorative. A mother's lullaby would not erase the knowledge that her son's future depended on another son's fate. A tutor praising a prince's intelligence might also be preparing him for a contest he did not choose. Every royal cradle stood near a political abyss. A quirky and unsettling tidbit appears in the later confinement of princes within the palace, sometimes described by European observers with fascination and dread. Some royal men lived for years in restricted apartments, shielded from politics, but also denied normal public life. Foreign writers called these spaces cages, sometimes with theatrical gloom. The reality was more complex, but the image survived because it captured truth. Preventing rivalry could also imprison possibility. The palace did not always kill competition. Sometimes it sealed it away. This change in practice reflected a shift from princes gaining provincial experience to princes being kept within the palace. The goal was to reduce armed succession struggles, yet the solution created new anxieties. A prince raised in confinement might survive, but without preparation. He might ascend the throne after years of isolation, surrounded by courtiers who understood the world better than he did. Safety had its own price. The open scholarly debate concerns whether such measures stabilized the empire or weakened its rulers over time. Some historians argue that eliminating succession wars saved countless lives and preserved central authority. Others suggest that confinement damaged the training of future sultans and increased dependence on palace factions. The evidence refuses to sit neatly in one hand. Stability and suffering often shared the same room. You may feel tempted to judge from a peaceful distance. That's natural. Modern minds prefer succession rules printed clearly and obeyed politely. Empires under pressure were rarely so tidy. When armies could declare for different princes, when provincial households could harden into factions, when foreign enemies watched every transition, a throne became a doorway through which chaos might enter. Still, knowing the logic does not remove the ache. Imagine two brothers playing in a garden court beneath cypress shade. One is older, already praised for his posture. The younger runs after a hoop, laughing too loudly until a servant hushes him. Their mothers watch from separate places. The boys may share fruit, jokes, lessons, and small quarrels, yet around them adults are counting futures. Who has more supporters? Who seems favoured? Which mother has stronger allies? Which tutor speaks to which household? Childhood becomes a map drawn by other hands. In such a world, trust between brothers is almost impossible to keep pure. A kind word may be sincere, but also remembered. A gift may be affection, but also signal. A shared meal may feel warm, yet the servant serving it may carry reports to different apartments. Even play can be interpreted, because courts are very good at ruining simple things. The sensory details remain painfully ordinary. Ink dries on a lesson board. A wooden toy is left near a cushion. A young prince's robe smells faintly of soap, dust, and garden air. Somewhere. A tutor clears his throat before correcting a royal child. Nothing in the scene announces tragedy. That is what makes it linger. Danger often enters dressed as routine. For the mothers of princes, the stakes are almost unbearable. To protect one child may mean fearing another woman's child. To remain passive may be to invite disaster. To plot may be to become monstrous in the eyes of later storytellers. Yet within the palace, moral choices rarely arrived cleanly wrapped. A mother could pray for mercy while strengthening her son's faction. She could pity a rival prince and still understand why he must never become powerful. That contradiction is the true darkness. The Sultan himself may suffer under it. He may remember his brothers as companions, rivals, threats, or ghosts. If he acts harshly, He preserves his throne but stains his soul. If he acts gently, he risks rebellion and perhaps the ruin of many. A ruler who survives the succession may carry victory like a hidden wound. The palace does not show that wound in ceremony. It covers it with robes, drums, greetings, and legal phrases. Officials speak of order. Poets praise destiny. Chroniclers place events into polished sentences. Yet somewhere beneath those words, the human cost remains. A brother is not an abstract danger when he has a name, a face, and a childhood voice. Your steps slow near a narrow passage. The air is cool against your skin. You feel the architecture turning inward again, as if the palace itself is reluctant to speak plainly. Royal blood was precious, but too much royal blood near the throne could become a threat. That is the awful arithmetic of dynasties. Perhaps this is why trust becomes so fragile here. A prince cannot fully trust praise, because praise may prepare him for ambition. He cannot fully trust silence, because silence may conceal judgment. He cannot fully trust family, because family is also the line of succession. Even his own promise to remain loyal may not save him, because the danger lies not only in what he intends, but in what others might do in his name. That is a cruel prison. The lamps burn low over the quiet apartments. The young princes sleep, or pretend to sleep, under blankets fine enough for royalty. Around them, the empire dreams uneasily. Mothers wait, servants listen. Tutors measure words. Somewhere, a scribe sharpens a reed pen, and the future hangs between ink and blood. In this palace, brotherhood is never simple affection. It is love standing beside fear, each watching the other breathe. You come now to the thresholds, where the palace reveals one of its most powerful human instruments. The doorways are not empty spaces. They are watched, measured, remembered, and guarded by men whose presence shape the movement of secrets through the imperial household. These are the eunuchs of the Ottoman palace, and their story is far more complex than the old whispering legends suggest. They were guardians, administrators, messengers, supervisors, patrons, and political witnesses. They stood between worlds that were never meant to touch too freely. Public and private, male and female, sultan and servant, court and harem, city and secluded chamber. At every threshold they made the palace possible. Historical records confirm that eunuchs held official ranks within the imperial household, with the chief black eunuch becoming especially influential in later centuries. Studies shaped by Ottoman historians at universities such as Chicago, Princeton, and Oxford have shown that this office controlled access to the harem and supervised important religious endowments tied to the holy cities. That is not a minor household task. That is power in a quiet robe. You hear a soft step near a guarded passage. A man stands beneath a lamp, hands folded, face still. He is not decorative. He is not merely watching. He is deciding what may pass, who may enter, which message is urgent, and which visitor must wait until waiting becomes an answer. Waiting can be an answer. The palace values such men because they are thought to stand outside ordinary family competition. In theory, they cannot found dynasties of their own. They cannot produce sons who might inherit offices and challenge the royal household through blood. This makes them useful to rulers who fear the ambitions of great families. Yet this theory, like so many palace theories, is only partly true. People without sons still have loyalties. They have friends, protégés, memories, fears, and ambitions. They may gather clients through patronage, protect younger servants, sponsor charitable works, and build reputations that outlive their bodies. The palace removes one kind of lineage, then creates another kind of influence. Human nature is stubborn. You pass into a corridor where the stone has cooled with the night. The air smells of oil lamps, clean cloth, and old wood. A faint draught moves through a screened opening. Somewhere, keys touch softly against a belt. A tiny metallic sound that seems larger than it should. Keys matter here. To control a key is to control time, space, and possibility. A locked door can protect privacy, but it can also hide fear. An opened door can grant favour, but it can also expose weakness. The eunuch at the threshold becomes the living hinge of palace life. He may seem silent, but silence can be a form of record-keeping. A quirky tidbit preserved in foreign descriptions is the nervous fascination outsiders had with eunuchs. Many European observers treated them as mysterious figures, sometimes exaggerating their influence, sometimes reducing them to cruel caricature. That says much about foreign discomfort with Ottoman palace structure. Yet even distorted descriptions agree on one point. Visitors understood that these guardians knew things others did not. Knowledge surrounded them like another garment. They knew who asked for entry. They knew who was refused. They knew which consort received messages. They knew when the Queen Mother wished to be undisturbed. They knew when a prince was ill, when a servant cried, when a physician arrived by night, when a letter came folded too carefully. Even when they did not speak, they were absorbing the pulse of the palace. You can imagine a young official attempting kindness at a doorway. He bows, offers polite words, perhaps a gift presented with all the innocent grace of a man bribing someone while hoping it looks like friendship. The eunuch receives him with perfect calm. Nothing is promised, nothing is denied. That calm is unbearable. A closed face can rule a hallway. The chief black eunuch, in particular, could become one of the most influential figures near the dynasty. He supervised the network connecting the Sultan's private household, the Queen Mother's apartments, and religious foundations. He might correspond with governors, manage appointments within the household, and carry messages with political force. He stood near the place where family feeling became imperial policy. The open scholarly debate concerns whether eunuchs should be understood mainly as servants of royal authority or as political actors with independent agency. Some historians emphasize their dependence on the Sultan and Queen Mother. Others argue that their control over access gave them real leverage, especially during reigns when palace households strongly shaped decision-making. The records show obedience, but they also show influence moving through obedience. That is an elegant trick. A man may bow deeply while altering the room. He may appear only as a messenger, yet decide the order in which messages arrive. He may serve a royal mother faithfully, while becoming essential to every faction that seeks her attention. He may never sit on the throne, but many who want the throne's favour must pass him first. The palace understands the value of such intermediaries. Direct contact is dangerous. Too many people reaching the Sultan would produce noise, pressure, and disorder. Too few would leave him isolated. Eunuchs help regulate that flow. They are filters, and filters change what passes through them. You feel the unsettling simplicity of it. Nobody needs to invent a grand conspiracy when ordinary procedure can shape reality. Delay a message, accelerate a warning, allow one servant to enter, suggest that another return tomorrow. Repeat a phrase with a slight difference. Mention that someone looked troubled. Leave something unsaid. The smallest choices gather weight. The lives of eunuchs also remind you that palace power was built from human suffering. Many had been forcibly removed from their origins through systems of enslavement and trade. Their rise inside the palace did not erase the violence that placed them there. They could become rich, respected, and feared, but their authority rested on a wound created before they ever held a key. That wound should not be romanticized. The palace often transformed trauma into service, then service into rank. It polished pain until it looked like ceremony. A man standing beneath a gilded ceiling might command dozens of servants, correspond with officials, and sponsor sacred works. Yet his life began in coercion. The empire could grant dignity inside a structure that had first taken freedom. That contradiction follows you through the hallway like a cold draught. At night, the thresholds become more charged. The public world sleeps, but private anxiety continues. A mother asks for news of her son. A favourite sends a request. A physician is summoned. A servant begs permission to report something strange. The eunuch hears the urgency in each voice and decides how it moves. Who could be trusted with such power? The palace answers by choosing men it believes cannot rival the dynasty through blood. But trust based on limitation is not trust without danger. A person who controls passage may become indispensable. A person who is indispensable cannot remain powerless. The lamps burn lower along the passage. Shadows collect near the carved doors. You sense that the palace is not guarded only against invaders, but against confusion, longing, ambition, and forbidden movement. Every threshold is a question. Every key is a small empire. The eunuch remains still in the lamplight, neither enemy nor friend, neither free nor ordinary servant. He is the keeper of the in-between, where palace secrets pause before choosing a direction. And in a world where every secret must pass through someone's hands, the quietest guardian may know the most. Beyond the guarded apartments, beyond the intimate corridors and watched thresholds, the palace opens again toward administration. Here the language of power changes. It becomes ink, seals, robes of office, council benches, tax ledgers, military reports, and the measured voices of men who understand that one careless sentence can shorten a career. You enter the world of viziers. The Grand Vizier stands at the summit of this official order, serving as the Sultan's chief minister and, in many periods, the empire's most visible administrator. He may command campaigns, supervise appointments, hear petitions, negotiate with foreign envoys, and preside over the imperial council. In theory, he acts as the ruler's right hand. In practice, hands can tremble, reach, conceal, or be cut away. Records confirm that the Grand Vizier carried the imperial seal, a sign that authority could move through him in the ruler's name. Scholars working in Ottoman studies at major universities such as Princeton and Columbia have shown how this office became essential to government across a vast empire. The seal was not just an object, it was permission made metal, legitimacy pressed into wax, command given shape. Imagine holding it. The weight would be small in the palm, yet enormous in consequence. With it, orders travel to governors, judges, treasurers, commanders, and frontier officials. Without it, words remain merely words. A minister who possesses the seal stands close enough to rule, but never close enough to be safe. That is a dangerous distance. You picture the council chamber in the Second Court, where officials gather beneath domes that soften every sound. The scent is not roses now, but paper, wool, leather, and human tension. Men sit according to rank. Scribes prepare to capture decisions. Petitions wait like sleeping animals. Outside, the palace kitchens steam and clatter. Inside, empire becomes discussion. A vizier must master several arts at once. He must flatter without appearing weak. He must warn without appearing disloyal. He must punish without seeming cruel. He must reward without creating enemies too quickly. He must obey the Sultan, but also protect the state from the Sultan's anger, impatience, or incomplete information. A simple job, really. The gentle absurdity hides a brutal truth. The Grand Vizier is powerful because he is exposed. When wars succeed, poets may praise the Sultan first. When wars fail, someone must absorb the blame. A minister near the throne becomes a lightning rod for anger, disappointment, jealousy, and public frustration. He may rise in silk and fall by a cord. Ottoman political culture could elevate talented men from palace service to astonishing heights. Some came from the Devshirme system, trained within imperial institutions, then placed in offices that old aristocracies might once have monopolized. This system created loyalty to the dynasty, but it also produced officials whose entire fortune depended on favour. They didn't merely serve power, they lived inside its weather. Favour can change overnight. A quirky tidbit from ambassadorial accounts concerns the theatrical dignity of official audiences. Foreign envoys sometimes described how Ottoman ministers appeared calm, almost unreadable, while visitors sweated through elaborate protocols and misunderstood half the symbolism around them. They noticed splendid robes, disciplined gestures, and the almost terrifying order of reception. What they often missed was the anxiety beneath that polish. Ottoman officials were performing not only for foreigners, but for one another. Everyone in a palace audience has an audience. A vizier's smile may be a shield. His silence may be a warning. His generous compliment may conceal an approaching dismissal. If he praises another minister too warmly, he may be binding that man closer, or marking him for suspicion. If he recommends a governor, he assumes responsibility for that governor's conduct. If the governor rebels or fails, the recommendation returns like a blade. You move through a corridor near the council spaces, and the floor seems firmer here. This is the part of the palace that wants to believe in systems. Documents are categorized, appeals are heard, taxes are organized, campaign supplies are counted. It sounds reassuring, and sometimes it was. Vast states need administration, not merely intrigue. Yet administration creates its own shadows. A ledger can hide theft. A promotion can purchase loyalty. A report can exaggerate unrest to remove an enemy. A legal opinion can be requested from the scholar most likely to give the desired answer. A provincial complaint can be delayed until its urgency fades. Nothing looks like a conspiracy when it's written in proper form. The open scholarly debate concerns whether Ottoman high politics should be understood mainly through institutional continuity or through factional struggle. Some historians emphasize the strength of administrative traditions, legal procedure, and fiscal management. Others highlight household networks, personal patronage, and the shifting alliances around powerful ministers. The empire was large enough to contain both truths, which is inconvenient for anyone craving a simple villain. The Grand Vizier's household could become almost a court within the court. Relatives, clients, scribes, military men, scholars, and servants might depend on his success. A rising vizier does not rise alone. He pulls others upward behind him, and those people become loyal because their fortunes are tied to his. This creates efficiency, trust, and danger in the same breath. If he falls, they fall trembling. You can imagine a minister returning late to his residence after council. The city outside murmurs under moonlight. Boats knock softly against the shore. Inside his house, clerks wait with documents. A servant brings water. A messenger from a provincial governor requests urgent attention. Another messenger carries a private note from someone inside the palace. The vizier removes his outer robe slowly, perhaps already aware that 3 different factions are speaking his name tonight. He must decide whom to believe. Trust among officials is a polished game. A fellow minister may support you during one campaign and undermine you during the next. A military commander may swear devotion while gathering supporters among the troops. A religious scholar may endorse your policy, then retreat when public anger rises. A scribe may copy your orders faithfully while keeping a second memory for your enemies. The ink dries quietly. The danger is not only betrayal from below. The Sultan himself may become suspicious of a successful Grand Vizier. A minister who wins wars, balances finances, and commands loyalty can begin to look too necessary. Rulers need capable servants, but they fear servants who appear irreplaceable. The more brilliant the vizier, the larger his shadow, and shadows near a throne are carefully watched. Some Grand Viziers died in office with honour, others were dismissed, exiled, executed, or stripped of wealth. Their careers remind you how unstable high service could be. The same hand that received the imperial seal might later surrender it with shaking fingers. The same robe of honour that proclaimed favour might become, in memory, the costume worn on the road to ruin. Still, ambition kept arriving. Why would men risk it? Because power has its own gravity. Because service could bring wealth, prestige, and the chance to shape history. Because some believed sincerely in governing well. Because others believed sincerely in themselves, which is not always the same thing. Because the palace offered no safe distance for those already drawn into its orbit. The chamber grows dim as night presses against the windows. You hear the imagined rustle of documents, the low murmur of clerks, the scrape of a seal box closing. A minister's fate may turn on a campaign report, a whispered accusation, a royal mood, or a letter arriving from the inner apartments. Here, loyalty is spoken constantly because it is never fully settled. A vizier may be trusted with armies, provinces, treasure, and the sultan's own seal. Yet that trust remains conditional, watched, and reversible. The palace grants authority like a lamp placed in the hand during a storm. It illuminates the path, but it also reveals the person holding it. And if the flame burns too brightly, everyone notices. The palace becomes most dangerous when words begin to travel without footsteps. A sealed letter can cross courtyards more quietly than a servant. A folded note can pass through hands that leave no memory in official records. A phrase written at midnight can reach a minister before sunrise, carrying more force than a shouted command. You enter the hidden life of correspondence. In the Ottoman world, letters are not simple messages. They are instruments of rank, persuasion, warning, affection, fear, and survival. Some carry imperial orders to distant governors. Others move between royal women and trusted officials. Some contain petitions from the provinces. Some are private enough to tremble in the fingers of the person receiving them. Paper has its own heartbeat here. Ottoman archives preserve vast numbers of decrees, registers, petitions, and diplomatic writings, revealing an empire deeply committed to documentation. Research from major institutions such as Harvard, Oxford, and the University of Chicago has emphasized the sophistication of Ottoman scribal culture. The empire did not rule by impulse alone. It ruled through trained hands, careful formulas, official language, and records that could outlive everyone involved. Yet documents do not always guarantee truth. A letter may be authentic and still misleading. A report may be accurate in detail, yet false in spirit. A warning may protect the throne, or destroy an enemy with the elegance of moral concern. The written word seems stable, but inside a palace it can become slippery as water on polished stone. You pause near a room where scribes might once have worked under low light. Reed pens rest near ink. Sand waits to dry the page. The air smells of paper fibre, lamp smoke, and tired concentration. A scribe bends over a line, shaping each word according to rank, too warm, and the letter feels presumptuous, too cold, and it sounds hostile, too brief, and it may insult, too elaborate, and it may conceal panic. Writing is diplomacy in miniature. A quirky tidbit from palace lore concerns the fear that letters could be opened, copied, resealed, or quietly diverted. The concern was not foolish. Courts everywhere developed habits of surveillance, and Ottoman officials were no strangers to controlled communication. Foreign ambassadors, too, often worried that their messages were being watched. Sometimes they were probably right. Sometimes suspicion did the work even when no one touched the seal. That is the beautiful cruelty of secrecy. You do not need proof to become afraid of it. A messenger passing through the palace carries more than paper. He carries timing. If he arrives during council, the letter enters public consideration. If he waits until evening, it may become a private concern. If he brings the note first to a chamberlain, the message enters one network. If he brings it through a eunuch, it enters another. The route shapes the meaning. A corridor chooses a destiny. You imagine a letter from a royal mother to a high official. The words may be respectful, perhaps concerned with a charitable foundation, a household matter, or the treatment of a servant. Yet beneath that surface may rest a request for appointment, protection, or restraint. The language remains proper. It does not need to shout. In a palace, a carefully phrased concern can sound louder than an accusation. A letter from a provincial governor has a different texture. It speaks of taxes, unrest, harvests, troop movements, or local rivalries. It may insist that loyalty is unbroken, which naturally makes everyone wonder where it might be cracking. It may accuse a neighbouring official of corruption. It may request more troops while pretending the situation is under control. Officials have always loved that phrase, under control. It usually means the fire has reached the curtains. The open scholarly debate concerns how historians should read palace correspondence. Some scholars treat letters as valuable windows into genuine relationships and administrative practice. Others warn that formulaic language, scribal convention, and political caution make sincerity difficult to identify. Both views matter. A letter can reveal emotion, but it can also hide behind the costume of correct expression. You begin to sense how much depends on interpretation. A single word may appear loyal or desperate, depending on who reads it. A delayed reply may mean illness, insult, calculation, or simple confusion. A gift accompanying a letter may soften a request, or make it look like bribery. The palace does not merely read words, it reads shadows around words. The material world of writing is strangely intimate. Paper must be acquired, ink must be mixed, pens must be cut, seals must be kept secure, a letter must be folded, wrapped, carried, received, opened, and stored or destroyed. Every stage creates risk. Every stage gives another person a chance to know. Silk can hide a note, a sleeve can hide a warning, a tray can carry fruit above and panic beneath. Stories of hidden messages are difficult to verify, but they persist because palace life made them believable. When direct speech is dangerous, objects become mouths. Even silence can be written. No answer may punish a petitioner more effectively than refusal. No reply may tell a faction that it has lost favour. A command not written may leave servants guessing, which can be useful to someone who wants deniability. The absence of a document can become its own document, preserved only in fear. You move through a narrow passage where the lamps have burned low. In the half-dark, you sense people listening for messages not meant for them. A servant near a stairwell hears that a courier arrived late. A clerk sees a familiar seal on unfamiliar paper. A eunuch notices that a letter is carried directly to a private apartment. None of them know the full story, but each holds a fragment. Fragments are dangerous in groups. A rumour can assemble itself from pieces never meant to meet. One person knows a governor wrote urgently. Another knows a prince's tutor seemed troubled. A third knows the Queen Mother postponed a visit. By morning, the palace may believe in a crisis that does not yet exist. Or perhaps it does exist, and only rumour has understood it first. This is why control of correspondence matters so deeply. Whoever controls messages can influence reality before events fully happen. A warning sent early may prevent rebellion. A warning suppressed may allow it to grow. A forged letter may frame an innocent person. An intercepted note may expose a conspiracy. A misunderstood phrase may ruin a loyal servant. There is nothing loud about it. The darker truth is that written loyalty can be performed beautifully. Every conspirator knows how to praise the sovereign. Every nervous official knows how to call himself obedient. Every ambitious courtier knows how to pretend reluctance while asking for reward. The page accepts everything. Ink does not blush. Yet the page can also preserve courage. A truthful report sent despite danger may save a province. A mother's plea may protect a child. A servant's warning may reveal treachery. A judge's petition may carry the suffering of people who have no other path into imperial hearing. Letters are not evil. They are simply powerful, and power makes them dangerous. The room of scribes fades into darkness as your eyes adjust to the soft glow beyond the doorway. You imagine stacks of records resting in bundles, each page a small survival of intention. Some letters changed appointments, some changed fortunes. Some may have changed nothing at all except the sleep of the person who received them. In this palace, trust must pass through paper, hands, seals, and silence. No message arrives pure. It arrives touched by distance, fear, ambition, and hope. A folded letter rests beneath silk. No one moves, yet somewhere before dawn, a life begins to turn because of words that barely made a sound. The rise of a favourite begins quietly, almost tenderly. with a glance that others pretend not to see. Nothing seems to happen at first. A conversation lasts slightly longer than expected. A gift arrives with unusual care. A servant is reassigned. A chamber becomes warmer with attention, and the entire palace begins to lean toward it. You enter the dangerous world of affection. In the Ottoman palace, a favoured consort could become more than a companion. She might become the mother of a prince, the centre of a household, a patron of servants, a figure watched by ministers, and a possible bridge between private desire and public consequence. Her power is rarely simple. It grows from closeness, timing, motherhood, intelligence, endurance, and the Sultan's willingness to listen. A mainstream historical fact rests beneath the silk. Ottoman imperial women, especially mothers of princes and recognised favourites, could sponsor religious and charitable foundations across the empire. Studies from scholars associated with universities such as Harvard and Oxford describe these foundations as both acts of piety and durable expressions of status. A woman who could not sit openly in council might still shape the city through water, prayer, bread, and stone. That makes favour visible. A fountain in the street may reveal what a corridor hides. A mosque complex may whisper that a woman within palace walls has gathered enough wealth, trust, and standing to leave a mark outside them. The public sees generosity. The palace sees rank. Rivals see danger. The rooms around you glow with late lamplight. Cushions rest against tiled walls. A bronze basin reflects the trembling flame. The air carries scents of musk, clean linen, and stewed fruit cooling in a distant kitchen. Somewhere. Bracelets touch softly as a woman adjusts her sleeve before receiving news. Perhaps she already knows. A favourite must learn quickly that affection attracts weather. If the Sultan smiles at her too openly, others begin counting. If she bears a son, calculations sharpen. If she receives costly fabrics, older servants remember. If the Queen Mother shows kindness, people speculate. If the Queen Mother shows coldness, people speculate even more. The palace is very generous with speculation. A quirky tidbit from Ottoman and European storytelling concerns the fear of love potions, charms, and hidden magical influence. Some palace rumours imagined that a favourite gained power through spells, strange herbs, or secret talismans. Serious evidence is thin, and gossip often reveals more fear than truth. Yet the rumour itself is meaningful. When people cannot explain influence, they often blame enchantment. It is easier than admitting someone is clever. Imagine a favoured woman sitting near a screened window as night settles over the city. She hears gulls, distant oars, and the softened murmur of guards. She may remember another life before the palace, perhaps sharply, perhaps through fragments. Yet now her world is made of rank and observation. She must smile without seeming triumphant. She must request without seeming greedy. She must protect her child without seeming dangerous. Every gesture is weighed. If she's too modest, she may be dismissed. If she's too visible, she may be hated. If she builds alliances, she may be accused of plotting. If she refuses alliances, she may be isolated. The path of a favourite is narrow, and the floor beneath it is polished by many who slipped. The open scholarly debate concerns how much political agency favoured consorts truly possessed. Some historians see them as active negotiators who used household networks, patronage, and correspondence to shape affairs. Others warn that hostile chroniclers and foreign observers exaggerated their influence, especially when male officials needed someone to blame. The truth must be handled carefully, because the sources often enjoyed turning powerful women into warnings. You can almost hear the moralizing voice. A woman rose, therefore trouble followed. Very convenient. Yet the palace does show patterns. When affection becomes influence, people who lack access become resentful. Ministers may fear that official advice is being softened or overturned in private. Other consorts may fear losing resources for their own children. Servants may shift loyalty toward the rising household. Even gifts become political weather vanes. A necklace is never just a necklace here. A favourite may also become a patron. She may protect musicians, readers, embroiderers, nurses, bath attendants, and scribes. Her household grows with her importance. Some serve from affection, some serve from hope. Some serve because they sense the direction of power before anyone announces it. In palaces, loyalty often arrives early to the winning room, but favourites can fall. A whisper may accuse her of arrogance. A failed pregnancy may be read as divine displeasure. A rival may suggest that her family or servants have grown too bold. A minister may blame her for a poor appointment. A military faction may resent her influence over the sultan's mood. Even silence from the ruler can become fatal to her standing. The room that was crowded yesterday may feel spacious tomorrow. You move past a chest of folded garments. The fabrics are rich, but fabric cannot defend anyone. Silk can cover trembling hands, but not stop accusation. Jewels can flash like little stars, but they cannot guarantee dawn. A favourite must understand that proximity to the ruler is not protection without condition. It is exposure wrapped in perfume. Affection itself may be real. That matters. The Sultan may genuinely care for her. She may offer comfort no minister can provide. In the private hours, when ceremony loosens and the empire's noise recedes, a ruler may want a voice that does not sound like paperwork. He may need tenderness, laughter, memory, or simply quiet company. Even sovereigns get tired. Yet private comfort becomes public anxiety because the body of the ruler belongs to the state. Whom he loves may influence whom he hears. Whom he hears may shape whom he trusts. Whom he trusts may determine whose name appears in appointment lists, whose petition receives mercy, whose warning is believed, and whose enemy is destroyed. This is why the favourite's chamber becomes a place of soft danger. Not because every favourite plots, not because affection is false, but because closeness is power, and power gathers fear the way still water gathers insects. The palace listens at the edges, a servant notices tears, a eunuch observes an unusual visit, a treasurer records costly purchases, a laundress sees whether robes return scented with celebration or anxiety. The favourite may live behind walls, yet she is never truly unseen. You feel the loneliness of that position. To be desired is not the same as being safe. To be envied is not the same as being strong. To be near the Sultan is to stand beside a flame that warms and burns without warning. Perhaps she trusts the ruler. Perhaps she trusts her servants. Perhaps she trusts the Queen Mother's measured kindness. Yet each trust must be renewed daily, tested through tone, timing, and small signs. A missed visit can feel like winter. A changed expression can darken a household. A rumour can turn friendship into distance by sunset. The bronze basin catches one last tremor of light. Outside, Istanbul breathes in the dark, unaware of the tiny shifts inside these guarded rooms. A woman folds a letter, or unfolds one. She listens. She waits. The price of favour is not only jealousy, it is never being allowed to be merely loved. The palace gates feel different when soldiers gather near them. Stone that once seemed ceremonial now feels practical, built to resist pressure from bodies, weapons, anger, and hunger. The night air carries the smell of damp leather, iron, sweat, horse tack, and smoke from street braziers. Beyond the walls, Istanbul does not sleep as peacefully as the inner rooms might wish. Here, intrigue stops being private. The Janissaries stand at the edge of palace politics like a storm bank over the sea. They are not merely soldiers waiting for orders. For centuries, they formed an elite infantry corps with deep connections to the Ottoman state, to pay registers, to barracks culture, to urban life, and to the frightening question of who could keep the empire obedient when the army itself became restless. Records confirm that the Janissaries began as a highly disciplined standing force, tied closely to the Sultan's household. Historians associated with universities such as Cambridge, Princeton, and Chicago have described their early role as one of the great military institutions of the pre-modern world. Over time, however, the corps changed, becoming increasingly involved in city politics, succession crises, and protests over pay, reform, and palace favouritism. A soldier at the gate is never only a soldier. He is a rumour with boots. You hear the low murmur of men gathered beyond a courtyard wall. Their voices rise, fall, and merge into something almost like surf. A commander tries to keep order. A junior officer listens for the mood of the crowd. Somewhere, a kettle is lifted or struck, and everyone nearby understands the signal better than any written decree. A quirky tidbit clings to the Janissary kettle, which became a symbol of corps identity. In some moments of rebellion, overturning or gathering around the great cooking cauldron carried political meaning. It sounds almost absurd at first, a kitchen object becoming a banner of unrest. Yet armies live through food, ritual, and shared signs. A cauldron can hold soup, memory, and mutiny all at once. Palace officials understood such signs very well. When soldiers complained, the issue might be wages, or delayed bonuses, or anger over a failed campaign, or resentment toward a grand vizier, or suspicion that a favourite advisor or hidden faction had misled the sultan. The surface demand could be simple. The meaning beneath it could be immense. Pay us. Dismiss him. Listen to us. Fear us. You stand near the outer edges of the palace, where messages begin to move quickly. Servants hurry with their heads lowered. Officials meet in half-lit chambers. A vizier asks whether the troops will come by morning. A palace guard pretends not to know. Pretending not to know is often a very advanced political skill. The Janissaries force the palace to remember something unpleasant. Power does not remain safely indoors. It depends on men who carry weapons, receive pay, share grievances, and understand their collective strength. A sultan may command armies in theory, but soldiers have moods in practice, and moods, when organised, become events. The open scholarly debate concerns whether Janissary political involvement should be viewed mostly as corruption and decline, or as a form of corporate bargaining within Ottoman society. Some historians describe the corps as increasingly resistant to necessary reform. Others argue that the soldiers defended privileges, wages, and urban networks in ways not entirely different from other organised groups. The debate matters because it changes the story from simple decay into a more complicated struggle over power. Complicated is less tidy, and is usually more honest. The palace, for all its screens and seals, cannot ignore a crowd near the gates. Private intrigue may begin in whispers, but soldiers translate whispers into force. A rumour that a prince has supporters can become dangerous if soldiers believe it. A rumour that a minister has stolen pay can become explosive if barracks repeat it. A rumour that the sultan is controlled by corrupt advisors can turn loyalty into fury. Notice the pattern. Soldiers may still claim love for the sovereign while demanding the death of those around him. This is a useful form of rebellion because it preserves reverence while permitting violence. They can say the ruler is good, but misled. They can say the palace is pure, but surrounded by traitors. It is an old political trick, and a very effective one. Everyone loves the king. Everyone hates the doorkeeper. Inside, the sultan's advisors calculate. Should they negotiate, punish, appease, distract, or sacrifice someone? A grand vizier who seemed untouchable yesterday may suddenly become a gift thrown to anger. A treasurer may be blamed for shortages. A commander may be accused of disloyalty. The palace protects itself by deciding whose removal will satisfy the street. That decision is rarely sentimental. The sensory world sharpens. A torch sputters in the wind. Metal rings against stone as guards shift positions. Somewhere, a horse stamps and exhales steam into the cold air. From the city comes a distant shout, then another, then the uneasy silence that follows when people listen for whether trouble is growing. The Janissaries know the palace needs them. They guard the dynasty, fight its wars, and help enforce its authority, yet because they are necessary, they become difficult to control. A tool held too long may remember the hand that grips it. A military corps praised for loyalty may begin to define loyalty for itself. That is the frightening turn. A soldier might truly believe he serves the empire by resisting a policy. He might see a reform as betrayal of old rights. He might see a minister as greedy, foreign, reckless, or impious. He might join a crowd because everyone else does, which is one of history's least poetic but most common causes of upheaval. Do not underestimate that. Many great events begin with people not wanting to stand alone. Palace intrigue changes once soldiers enter the story. A whispered accusation no longer damages only reputation. It can bring armed men into motion. A faction inside the palace may seek support among the corps. A faction among soldiers may seek a name within the palace. Each side uses the other and fears being used. Trust becomes a weapon carried between gate and barracks. The city itself matters. The Janissaries were not ghosts living only in military texts. They became woven into urban neighborhoods, commerce, religious life, and local patronage. A complaint in the barracks could echo through coffeehouses, markets, and workshops. Palace tension could spread into streets where ordinary people measured imperial crisis by bread prices, taxes, soldiers, and the rumour of closed shops. So the palace listens outward, not romantically, carefully. A ruler must ask whether the sound beyond the walls is passing anger or organised revolt. A minister must ask whether his enemies have fed that anger. A courtier must ask whether silence is safer than advice. A servant must ask whether the safest place is near the centre of power or far from it. Near the gate, the question of trust becomes almost brutal. Can the Sultan trust the soldiers who swear to protect him? Can the soldiers trust officials who promise payment? Can ministers trust commanders to contain unrest? Can commanders trust hungry men to remain obedient? Can anyone trust a crowd once fear and righteousness have mingled? The answer moves like smoke. Sometimes the Janissaries defended the throne. Sometimes they threatened it. Sometimes they acted from grievance. Sometimes from manipulation. Sometimes from a sense of corporate honour. Their presence reminds you that palace intrigue is never only silk, letters, and quiet rooms. It is also iron at the gate. The torches burn lower. The murmur beyond the wall fades, then returns in waves. Inside the palace, polished floors wait under lamplight, pretending that order is permanent. Outside, men with weapons breathe in the cold and wonder whether morning will bring pay, pardon, punishment, or bloodless dismissal. The palace can hide many things. It cannot hide from the army forever. The palace grows more vulnerable when night turns the mind towards signs. A lamp sputters without wind. A dream arrives before dawn. A comet appears above the city, pale and remote, while people below pretend not to be afraid of the sky. You enter the world of omens, astrologers, dreams, and uneasy prediction. Modern eyes may smile at such things, because modern eyes enjoy feeling superior from a safe distance. Yet courts across the early modern world took signs seriously, and the Ottoman palace was no exception. Astrology, dream interpretation, sacred timing, and learned speculation could all become part of political atmosphere. Not always policy, not always command, but atmosphere. And atmosphere shapes decisions more often than official documents admit. Historical evidence confirms that Ottoman rulers, like many contemporary monarchs, sometimes consulted astrologers for auspicious times and celestial interpretations. Scholars working in the history of science at institutions such as Oxford, Harvard, and Yale have shown that astronomy and astrology were not always separated in older court cultures as sharply as they are today. The same sky could be studied, measured, feared, and interpreted all at once. That is not ignorance in a simple sense. It is a different relationship with uncertainty. Imagine standing on a terrace above the dark water, where the city glimmers below like scattered embers. The air smells of night jasmine, salt, and extinguished lamp smoke. Somewhere, a learned man studies charts by candlelight, tracing planetary positions with careful fingers. Elsewhere, a servant whispers that a royal dream has troubled the household. The palace does not sleep easily after such whispers. A dream could matter because the dreamer mattered. If an ordinary servant dreamed of a falling tower, perhaps someone laughed and told him to eat less before bed. If the Sultan dreamed of a falling tower, the palace might listen. A ruler's inner world could become public concern, especially when fear already moved beneath the surface. Dreams are private theatres. In palaces or a private theatres sell many tickets. A quirky tidbit preserved in courtly habits concerns the selection of favourable hours for certain actions, such as military departures, ceremonies, or the beginning of important works. The choice of timing might involve astrology, prayer, tradition, and political convenience, all wearing the same cloak. It sounds charming until you remember that a delayed departure could affect armies, supplies, and human lives. A lucky hour can be surprisingly expensive. You move past a chamber where a court astrologer might present advice with great caution. He must be careful. If he predicts danger and nothing happens, he may look foolish. If he predicts safety and disaster follows, he may look worse. If he tells the ruler what everyone fears, he may be accused of spreading anxiety. If he conceals his concern, he may be blamed for silence. Prediction is a risky profession. No wonder so many predictions are wrapped in clouds. The open scholarly debate concerns how seriously Ottoman elites treated astrology and omens in actual decision-making. Some historians view them as symbolic practices that reinforced royal ceremony more than they directed policy. Others argue that timing, dreams, and celestial interpretation could influence real choices, especially during crisis, illness, war, or succession anxiety. The archive offers traces, but motives remain dim. You sense the difficulty. A decree may record a campaign date, but not the fear that shaped it. A chronicle may mention a comet, but not every whisper it caused in the palace kitchen. A dream may be written down later, improved by memory, softened by piety, or sharpened into propaganda. Signs are slippery sources. They glow, then vanish. Still, people watched. They watched eclipses. They watched storms. They watched fires, earthquakes, strange births, sudden illnesses, and the behaviour of animals. They watched the Sultan's face when bad news arrived. They watched whether the Queen Mother sent for scholars. They watched whether a minister postponed a meeting after hearing of an omen. The palace became a place where the universe itself seemed to participate in politics. That belief could comfort. It suggested history was not random. It suggested that disasters came with warnings. If only wise people could read them. It suggested that heaven, time, and empire formed a pattern. In a world of plague, war, rebellion, and fragile succession, pattern was not a luxury. It was emotional shelter. But shelter can become a trap. When signs are everywhere, everything becomes suspicious. A candle going out may suggest danger. A bird striking a window may trouble a household. A dream of water may be read as mercy by one interpreter and peril by another. An eclipse may become a battlefield for meaning before any army moves. Interpretation becomes power. Who explains the sign? Who has the ruler's ear? Who says the omen points toward caution, reform, punishment, patience, or war? A scholar may speak with sincerity. A rival may use the moment to damage an enemy. A frightened servant may exaggerate. A clever courtier may translate cosmic unease into political opportunity. The sky's innocent. The palace is not. You walk through a gallery where moonlight lies across the tiles. The blue patterns look almost like moving water. Somewhere, a distant door closes with a hollow sound. You feel how easily fear can become ritual. Burn incense. Recite prayers. Consult a learned man. Delay the journey. Replace a servant. Change the hour. Offer charity. Watch the sky again. Such actions may calm the palace. They may also signal distress. If too many precautions gather, people notice. If no precautions are taken, people notice that too. The palace is impossible that way. Even reassurance becomes information. A royal dream can travel faster than an official order. A servant hears a fragment from a nurse. A eunuch observes an unusual consultation. A clerk learns that an astrologer was summoned. By sunset, several factions may decide that the ruler is uneasy. And once people believe the ruler is uneasy, they begin preparing for the reason. This can create the very instability it fears. Perhaps a prince's supporters grow alert. Perhaps a minister's enemies sense weakness. Perhaps soldiers hear that strange signs have appeared. Perhaps ordinary citizens in the market connect the omen to tax burdens, grain shortages, or rumours of war. Meaning spreads through society like smoke under a door. The palace may attempt to manage interpretation. Chroniclers can frame omens after events, making victory seem foretold and disaster seem warned. Ceremonies can redirect anxiety into devotion. Charity can transform fear into public virtue. Learned explanations can make the heavens sound orderly again. Yet doubt remains. At the centre of it all is the ruler, a human being asked to govern beneath an enormous sky. He may hear military reports in the morning and dream interpretations by night. He may trust a minister's numbers, a physician's pulse reading, a mother's instinct, a scholar's caution, and an astrologer's hour. None give certainty. Each offers a different kind of map. You feel the softness of the dark around the palace. It is calm, but not empty. The night holds stars, smoke, prayers, and troubled breathing behind carved screens. Somewhere, a man trained to read the heavens lifts his eyes from a page. Somewhere else, a woman wakes from a dream and wonders whether to speak. The search for certainty becomes its own intrigue, because the most dangerous omen may not be in the sky at all. It may be the human need to believe that fear has a pattern, that danger has a warning, and that someone, somewhere inside the palace, knows what the signs truly mean. Accusation enters the palace softly, like cold air beneath a door. It does not always arrive with shouting. Often it begins as concern, then caution, then testimony, then a sealed statement placed before someone powerful enough to believe it. You come into a chamber where judgment is being prepared, though nothing looks dramatic at first. The floor is clean, the lamps are steady, papers lie in careful order. A clerk waits with his reed pen. A senior official speaks in a voice so controlled that it feels almost kind. That is when you understand how frightening calm can be. The Ottoman state possessed courts, legal officers, religious judges, administrative inquiries, and political procedures for investigation and punishment. Records confirm that judges and scribes preserved testimony, property disputes, criminal matters, and imperial commands in careful registers. Scholars at universities such as Harvard, Oxford, and the University of Chicago have studied these records as evidence of a sophisticated legal culture, where formal process mattered even inside a world of rank and pressure. Yet palace accusation is not the same as village litigation. Near the throne, truth becomes crowded. A servant may accuse another servant of carrying messages. A eunuch may report suspicious movement near private rooms. A minister may be charged with corruption, negligence, or secret correspondence. A favourite may be blamed for influencing appointments. A prince's tutor may be watched too closely. Each accusation may contain fact, fear, ambition, or all three braided together. The palace asks questions, but questions have temperature. Who is asking? Who benefits? Who is absent? Who has already decided what the answer should be? You feel how difficult justice becomes when every witness belongs to someone's household, someone's faction, someone's fear. A quirky tidbit appears in accounts of palace rumour, where even harmless objects could become evidence in the imagination of frightened people. A pouch of herbs might be treated as medicine by one person, a charm by another, and poison by someone eager for scandal. A folded paper might be a poem, a prayer, or proof of treason. Courts and households everywhere have loved making small things carry large meanings. The object stays silent. People do the rest. Imagine a servant brought into questioning at night. He is not necessarily guilty. Perhaps he carried a note without reading it. Perhaps he stood near a doorway because he was ordered there. Perhaps he accepted a coin that meant nothing until someone needed it to mean something. He kneels, speaks, sweats, and searches every face for signs of mercy. A confession may be truth. It may also be strategy. A frightened person may name someone powerful to satisfy interrogators. A guilty person may name an innocent rival to create confusion. A loyal person may lie to protect a household. A clever person may tell a partial truth. The palace specialty, partial truth, is very durable. The open scholarly debate concerns how historians should interpret confessions and accusations preserved in official or narrative sources. Some researchers read them as valuable windows into hidden networks and political conflict. Others warn that pressure, formulaic language, factional interest, and retrospective storytelling can distort what was recorded. A document may preserve a voice, but not the conditions under which the voice was forced to speak. That uncertainty follows you from line to line. A trial inside such a world rarely offers pure villains and innocent angels. The accused minister may indeed have taken money, yet his rivals may be worse. The servant may have spied, yet only because survival required serving two masters. The courtier may have lied, yet his lie may have prevented a larger purge. Moral clarity enters the palace and immediately loses its way. The chamber smells of wax, ink, wool, and anxiety. A bowl of water rests near the wall, untouched. A guard stands without expression, which is another kind of expression. Outside, someone waits for news and pretends to count prayer beads only from devotion. The process of accusation often depends on repetition. One whisper can be dismissed. 2 whispers become interesting. 3 whispers from different corridors begin to resemble evidence, even if all 3 came from the same original fear. This is how rumour dresses itself as confirmation. It changes clothes at every doorway. By morning, everyone has heard it from a reliable person. Naturally, that reliable person heard it from another reliable person, who heard it while not officially listening. You sense the gentle cruelty of court society. People protect themselves by becoming useful. A person who knows a damaging secret may survive longer than one who knows nothing. But the person who speaks too soon may be punished for slander, while the person who speaks too late may be punished for concealment. The correct moment to reveal danger is obvious only to historians who arrive centuries afterward with tea and confidence. Inside the palace, timing is fog. A high official under suspicion faces a particular terror. His household begins to freeze before any sentence is declared. Servants avoid being seen near his door. Friends become busy. Former clients rediscover modesty. Letters slow. Invitations vanish. Even silence gathers around him like dust. He may still hold office, yet already feel dismissed by air. Political punishment could take many forms. A man might be removed from office, exiled, stripped of property, imprisoned, or executed in severe cases. The palace often used confiscation as well as dismissal, reminding officials that wealth gained through service never became entirely private. Favour created fortune, but fortune remained under imperial shadow. This made trust among elites deeply unstable. To accept a powerful patron was to rise with him, yet also risk falling with him. To testify against him might save you, or mark you forever as faithless. To remain loyal might be honourable, or foolish, depending on who won. Palace morality often waited for the result before choosing its vocabulary. Victory calls loyalty noble, defeat calls it complicity. You stand near the imagined accused, who listens as allegations are read. Perhaps he remembers the faces of people he once promoted. Perhaps one of them is now speaking against him. Perhaps the charge is false, and he is learning how little truth matters when fear has chosen a direction. Or perhaps the charge is true, and he is discovering that everyone else is pretending innocence with remarkable talent. There is a weary human comedy in that. Though it is not funny for him, the palace needs trials and inquiries because it must cleanse itself of danger. But every cleansing can become another struggle for advantage. Removing a corrupt official may protect the state. Removing a rival under the name of corruption may protect a faction. The difference may be clear to heaven, but not always to the archive. A clerk lowers his pen, a seal is pressed, a decision begins travelling outward, more solid now than the uncertainties that produced it. Someone will lose rank, someone will gain space, someone will claim justice has been done, someone else will remember differently. The lamps burn without sympathy. You leave the chamber with the uneasy sense that accusation in the palace is not merely a search for guilt. It is a test of whose story becomes official. It asks who can gather witnesses, control timing, survive questioning, and make fear sound like evidence. In such a place, trust is not destroyed by betrayal alone. It is weakened by the possibility that any truth can be used against the person who speaks it. And sometimes, the most dangerous question is not whether someone is guilty, it is who needs them to be. Trust now becomes the palace's most elusive luxury, more precious than jewels and harder to guard than treasure. You move through rooms where everyone speaks of loyalty, and that alone begins to feel suspicious. The word appears too often. It is offered in greetings, letters, ceremonies, prayers, and carefully polished compliments. It shines from every mouth, which makes you wonder where its shadow has gone. A palace is a house of mirrors, not literal mirrors only, though polished metal and darkened glass may catch faces in lamplight. The deeper mirror is social. Every person reflects another person's fear, ambition, duty, or disguise. A servant watches a eunuch watches a favourite watches the Queen Mother, a minister watches the army, the Sultan watches them all, and still cannot see everything. That is the old problem of rule. Historical records confirm that Ottoman governance relied heavily on household bonds, patronage networks, military service, legal offices, and religious authority. Scholars from institutions such as Yale, Stanford, and Oxford have described imperial politics as a layered world where personal relationships and formal institutions work together. The written order mattered. So did the hand that delivered it, the ear that heard it, and the room where it was discussed. This makes trust complicated from the beginning. You may trust an office, but the office is held by a person. You may trust a person, but the person belongs to a household. You may trust a household, but the household depends on favour. You may trust favour, but favour changes with illness, age, desire, military defeat, and one badly timed whisper. The palace teaches this lesson without raising its voice. A door opens for you today. Tomorrow, the same door remains closed, and no one explains why. A friendly clerk avoids your eyes. A servant who once hurried to greet you suddenly moves more slowly. Nobody has accused you. Nobody has defended you. Yet the air has shifted, and in a palace, air can be evidence. A quirky tidbit from courtly observation concerns the use of gift-giving as a language of trust. Robes of honour, horses, jewels, sweets, books, perfumes, and fine textiles could all communicate favour, obligation, or gratitude. Some gifts were sincere, some were strategic, some were both, because human beings rarely keep their motives neatly separated for the convenience of later historians. A box of sweets can be kindness. It can also be a contract. You walk past a storeroom where folded fabrics rest in ordered stacks. Their colours are dim in the low light, deep red, green, gold, and blue. Each might one day clothe loyalty. Each might dress someone being promoted, celebrated, married, rewarded, or forgiven. Cloth remembers touch, but it does not reveal intention. Trust inside the palace rarely means complete belief. It means managed risk. A ruler trusts a vizier enough to send him to war, but keeps other officials watching him. A queen mother trusts a eunuch enough to carry messages, but not enough to leave every seal unguarded. A favourite trusts a servant with private grief, while knowing grief can become currency. A prince trusts his tutor, though the tutor may also report his temperament. This is not paranoia in the foolish sense. It is survival with manners. The open scholarly debate concerns whether Ottoman palace culture should be seen as unusually suspicious, or as part of a broader pattern found in many early modern courts. Some historians emphasize distinctive Ottoman institutions, such as the imperial harem, palace school, and janissary connection to the dynasty. Others compare Istanbul with Madrid, Isfahan, Versailles, and Beijing, where controlled access and household politics also shaped power. The comparison softens judgment, but it does not remove unease. Every court has shadows. The Ottoman palace arranged them beautifully. You pause near a courtyard where dawn is still distant. The stones hold the memory of the day's warmth, but the air has cooled. A cat slips along the edge of a wall, perfectly at home in all the places humans guard so seriously. Somewhere, a night watchman clears his throat. Somewhere else, a woman waits for news that may not come. The central question presses closer now. Who could be trusted? The obvious answer is no one, but that is too easy, and perhaps too theatrical. People did trust each other. They had to. No empire runs on suspicion alone. Mothers trusted nurses with children. Sultans trusted physicians with their bodies. Ministers trusted scribes with their words. Soldiers trusted comrades in battle. Servants trusted one another with daily burdens. Without trust, the palace would stop breathing. But the trust was usually partial, conditional, and constantly renewed. It was less like a stone wall and more like a lamp flame. It needed tending. It could be sheltered, shared, carried, or extinguished. Too much wind, and it vanished. Too little air, and it suffocated. This is why betrayal hurt so deeply. Not because trust was absent, but because trust was necessary. A servant who betrayed a chamber did not merely leak information. He damaged the possibility of sleep. A minister who misled the Sultan did not merely commit a political offence. He weakened the structure through which rule became possible. A mother who manipulated affection did not simply scheme. She turned the most intimate bond into a public instrument. The palace survives by turning people into roles, but people keep leaking through. A eunuch may be guardian, official, survivor, and wounded child all at once. A favourite may be consort, patron, captive, mother, and strategist. A vizier may be servant, rival, reformer, and frightened man beneath his robe. A prince may be heir, danger, student, son, and prisoner of expectation. No one is only one thing here. That is why trust slips away when you try to seize it. A person may be loyal in one direction and treacherous in another. A minister may serve the empire faithfully while destroying a rival. A mother may protect her child with devotion while endangering someone else's. A soldier may love the dynasty while joining a revolt against its advisors. A scribe may record the truth and still omit the part that would ruin him. The palace does not divide neatly into faithful hearts and false ones. It gathers people under pressure until their loyalties bend into shapes even they may not fully understand. You feel that pressure in the walls. The architecture is graceful, but also instructive. Gates separate, screens conceal, courtyards expose, corridors redirect. Rooms hold rank in their proportions. Even space teaches caution. To know where you may stand is to know who you are. To be invited farther inward is to gain honour and danger together. Access is never innocent. A person admitted too close becomes useful, then envied, then vulnerable. A person kept too far away becomes resentful, then imaginative, then perhaps dangerous. The palace must manage distance constantly, like a musician tuning strings that threaten to snap. You hear the faint creak of wood as a door settles. The sound is small, but in this world, small sounds matter. You begin to understand that trust is not a feeling hidden inside the heart. It is a practice performed in public and private, in greetings, gifts, silence, obedience, hesitation, and return visits. It must be acted every day. Perhaps the darkest truth is that everyone knows this. The Sultan knows loyalty can be performed. The servant knows kindness can be strategic. The favourite knows affection can become accusation. The soldier knows obedience can turn into bargaining. The minister knows success can look like ambition from the wrong angle. And still they continue. They bow, write, wait, smile, report, bless, warn, promise, conceal, and hope to be believed. They build trust from materials already cracked. They make alliances in rooms where everyone understands that fortune is temporary. They whisper vows under ceilings painted to look eternal. The palace becomes a mirror not only of Ottoman power but of human power everywhere. Behind the robes and tiles, behind the seals and screens, the question remains painfully familiar. How much of another person can you ever truly know? How much danger hides inside dependence? How much loyalty survives when fear enters the room? The lamps tremble in their niches. The corridors stretch away into darkness. Every face you imagine seems to hold two expressions, one offered and one withheld. In this house of mirrors, trust does not disappear. It multiplies into reflections, and you are left watching them fade, unable to tell which one was real. The last lamp before dawn burns with a smaller flame, as if the palace itself has grown tired of keeping watch. You stand in the fading dark, where corridors lose their sharpness, and every polished surface seems to hold the memory of footsteps. The night has not revealed a single answer. It has offered doors, faces, signals, and silences, each one carrying its own unfinished meaning. The palace is quiet now, but not innocent. You sense that its deepest truth was never hidden in one locked chamber. It was scattered through routines. It lived in the careful bore, the delayed message, the gift sent too late, the servant who overheard nothing and remembered everything. It lived in the strange marriage between beauty and fear, where blue tiles gleamed above human calculation, and where soft carpets absorbed conversations that might have changed lives. Ottoman records confirm that palace life continued through vast systems of service, law, ritual, finance, education, and household management. Scholars from universities such as Princeton, Yale, and Oxford have shown that imperial power did not rest only on the Sultan's command. It moved through people, offices, ceremonies, and relationships, all held together by custom and constant negotiation. That is what makes the palace feel alive. Not alive like a beast from a fireside tale, though one can understand the temptation. Alive like an ancient tree, with roots buried deep, branches crossing, leaves trembling in weather no single branch can control. One faction bends, another grows, a storm passes through. Something breaks quietly in the dark, and by morning everyone pretends the shape was always meant to be that way. A quirky tidbit lingers in the way later storytellers imagine Topkapi as a maze of secret passages, hidden lovers, poisoned cups, and silent assassins. Some of those tales were exaggerated, embroidered by foreign curiosity and local memory. Yet they survived because the architecture of secrecy invited them. When a place is built around controlled access, imagination rushes toward every locked door. People do not need full truth to create a legend. They only need a shadow and a wall. As dawn approaches, the palace seems less interested in villains. That may be the most unsettling part. The old stories ask you to choose who was loyal and who was false, who deserved trust and who deserved punishment. But the palace resists such simple sorting. A person may be devoted at breakfast and dangerous by sunset, not because the soul changes completely, but because pressure changes the path beneath the feet. A mother protects, A minister calculates, a eunuch filters, a soldier demands, a favourite waits, a prince grows older beneath watchful eyes. Each person moves through a system that rewards caution, punishes innocence, and makes sincerity difficult to prove. It is possible that the darkest intrigues were not always born from hatred. Some began with love, fear, duty, pride, hunger, loyalty, or the need to survive another day. That does not excuse cruelty. It only makes the cruelty more human, which is often worse. A monster can be dismissed. A human being must be understood. The open scholarly debate remains live in modern studies of the Ottoman court. Some historians place greatest weight on formal institutions, law, military organisation, and the practical needs of empire. Others follow the threads of household politics, women's patronage, personal networks, and private access. The palace stands between these interpretations, refusing to belong entirely to either one. Perhaps both are true. A state can be orderly and anxious. A court can be disciplined and full of rumour. A ruler can be powerful and dependent. A servant can be low in rank and rich in knowledge. An empire can build mosques, roads, archives, and laws while still trembling at a whisper behind a screen. You feel the cool air arriving before sunrise. The scent changes again. Less smoke now. More stone, more sea, more morning damp on garden leaves. The city beyond the walls begins to stir. Bakers tend ovens, boatmen prepare ropes, dogs move through alleys. Somewhere, an ordinary person wakes without knowing which courtier has fallen from favour, which mother has prayed through the night, or which letter has been hidden beneath cloth. The world continues. That may be the palace's final lesson. Intrigue feels immense to those trapped within it. Yet outside the gates, life has its own demands. Bread must be bought, children must be carried, water must be drawn, taxes must be feared, news must be guessed from the faces of officials riding through the street. Imperial secrets eventually touch ordinary lives, but ordinary lives also continue beneath imperial uncertainty. Power is never as complete as it appears. Inside the palace, the last lamp trembles. Perhaps a servant enters to trim it. Perhaps a guard shifts his weight at the gate. Perhaps the Sultan has not slept well. Perhaps the Queen Mother has already risen. Perhaps a clerk is preparing a document that will sound calm, official, and inevitable. Though it was born from arguments no record will fully preserve. This is where certainty thins. You cannot know every motive. You cannot recover every whisper. You cannot ask the frightened servant what he truly heard. You cannot ask the accused minister whether his final silence meant guilt, dignity, exhaustion, or despair. You cannot ask the favourite whether she felt powerful, lonely, loved, or watched beyond endurance. You cannot ask the prince whether he trusted anyone while growing beneath the shadow of inheritance. The archive gives fragments. The stones give atmosphere. The imagination must walk carefully between them. And still, something can be understood. The palace was not merely a stage for dark plots. It was a system that made trust precious and perilous at once. It gathered people close to power, then made that closeness dangerous. It rewarded service, but watched servants. It needed affection, but politicised affection. It praised loyalty, but created conditions where loyalty had to compete with fear. That is the truth hiding beneath the ornament, not one secret. A pattern of dependence, silence, ambition, ceremony, and human vulnerability, repeated across generations beneath domes and painted ceilings. The palace did not invent suspicion. It refined it. It did not invent loyalty. It tested it until loyalty became almost indistinguishable from endurance. The first light touches the roofs of Istanbul. Marble turns pale. The tiles lose their night glow and become objects again. Beautiful, still, almost harmless. A bird calls from the garden, small and clear in the morning air. For a moment, the palace appears peaceful enough to forgive, but peace is not the same as innocence. You leave the last lamp to fade in the growing light. Behind you, the rooms remain, holding their polished doors, guarded thresholds, folded fabrics, silent records, and names half remembered. The question does not end. It follows softly through the waking courtyards, past the stones and cypress trees, toward the city and the sea. Who could be trusted? Perhaps no one completely. Perhaps some people briefly. Perhaps trust itself was the rarest treasure in the Ottoman palace, more fragile than glass, more useful than gold, and more dangerous than any dagger. The flame sinks lower now, no longer fighting the dawn. You feel the story loosen its hold, like a hand opening slowly in sleep. The palace remains behind you, not solved, not conquered, not made simple. Its doors close without anger, its windows brighten without confession. Its secrets do not rush after you. They stay where old secrets often stay, folded into stone, paper, breath, and silence. Let the corridors grow distant. Let the guards become shapes. Let the old arguments soften until they are only murmurs beneath the morning birds. The sultan, the mother, the favourite, the soldier, the servant, and the minister all recede into the same pale light. Their fears were heavy once. Their choices mattered once. Yet now they drift through history like smoke from a lamp that has almost gone out. You do not need to decide every guilt tonight. You do not need to open every sealed letter. Some questions can rest beside you, unanswered and harmless for a while. The sea beyond the palace keeps moving. The city keeps breathing. Dawn spreads over the domes with patient hands, touching marble, wood, tile, and garden leaves, and perhaps, somewhere in that gentle light, the palace is no longer asking who betrayed whom. Perhaps it is only reminding you that every human heart has rooms unseen by others, and every age builds walls around what it fears to lose. Breathe slowly now. Let the last lamp fade. Let the palace sleep. And perhaps the story is not yet complete. End of script. Good night.